Good evening, world, and welcome to another episode of A24 on the Rocks, where the takes are always red hot and the critiques, well, they're fair, honest, and, well, also booze-infused. My name is Kevin K. Konachek, and I am your host for this evening's spooky affair. I'm an avowed hater of all things horror, so, this should be fun. Tonight I'm drinking a Woodford with a splash of sour mix because bourbon is life. But I'm not alone. Oh, no. I have my supernatural group of drinking buddies with me, and I am oh so happy that they are here. First up, we have...
Hail Mary, listeners. I'm Eric Kiska, coming at you like a good Catholic boy drinking red wine. And I don't know what type, but a French red wine, and I swear that I'm confirmed, so I hopefully won't get possessed. Up next, we have my wife, Kelly.
Hi, it's Kelly. I am the devoted lover of all things haunted, horror, terror, and awful. I also will be representing the Protestant perspective, which I think is really it's not shown enough in the society we live in yet. So I'll be glad to bring it. But while I'm doing that, I will be drinking red wine as well.
Free Ireland.
After me comes.
Hey, it's Cole William Whitlaw Gibson, resident nomad, I guess. I don't really know where I am most of the time. I'm currently in Fairbanks, Alaska. I'm drinking Whistle Pig Summer Stock, the Pit Viper edition. I'm drinking it out of a mug because I'm in an Airbnb and I never have a real house. Also, hail Satan. Let's go.
A24 on the Rocks.
All right, for our listeners out there, we are reviewing the 2015 supernatural psychological horror film, The Blackcoat's Daughter. This film was written and directed by Osgood Perkins. The film stars Emma Roberts, Kiernan Shipka. I'm sure I murdered that. You guys will have to correct me later.
Kiernan Shipka.
There you go. Thank you. Yeah. Lucy Boynton, Lauren Holly, and James Reamer. The film premiered at the 2015 Toronto International Film Festival and was released theatrically in the United States in March 31st, 2017, which is a little odd since I said it was a 2015 movie. Eric, you're going to have to help me out with this one. But the basic...
2017.
So it was released in 2017, but it was written in 2015.
Distributed in 2017, probably released before then, but A24 distributed it in 2017.
Wow. All right. Well, there you go, listeners. A little bit of factoid. Well, the basic plot revolves around three separate timelines, ultimately making the film non-linear. The first two, Rose and Joan, intercut between each other. For a third timeline, Kat is introduced and compromises the film's climax. But for this episode, instead of explaining it scene by scene, I want to ask some overarching theme questions as well as some general questions about the film. This should allow for a more dynamic discussion. All right, everybody. Who has seen this film before? Anybody? Anybody at all? Kelly.
Kelly and I.
Kelly and Eric has both seen The Blackcoat's Daughter before this. All right, so having seen it before, were you going into this with a different perspective?
I'll say what I remember from watching it the first time, which is I remembered basically nothing. I remember when I had watched this too, I felt like with the title of the movie, and supposedly the potential working title of it was just called February, which personally I kind of wish that they went with, because for me I spent half the movie wondering, so who's the Blackcoat? What does a Blackcoat do? What's his whole thing? Before later figuring out a black coat could mean a priest, it could mean Satan, it could mean a man, like a father figure in general. But I feel like that title distracted me so much that when I tried to remember having watched this, I was trying to think, well, who was the dad? If I could just put my memory back on who the black coat was, I'll remember what this whole movie was about. So that really distracted me. And I also remember thinking that it seemed like the successor almost to The Witch, like it was trying to be in that kind of wheelhouse. And in my opinion, it became more American Horror Story than The Witch. So these were like my faint memories of it, but mostly I had forgotten that I watched it. I just know that I did. And so watching it again, we got like 25% of the way through and I went, I remember the ending now. So that was my rewatch.
I just a quick comment. I also found myself asking who was Blackcoat's daughter throughout the entire movie, even to the end. So it was also distracting, especially because there were three main characters that were all female. They all could have been, and maybe we'll discuss who was and wasn't, or whatever. But my point is I was also equally distracted. Eric, what was your perspective having seen this before?
I remembered the whole ending. I remembered being scared from it. I probably hadn't watched it in about 5 years. But, like I said, I'm a good Catholic boy, and supernatural horror movies really scare me, and possession movies especially scare me. I don't think this was like it wasn't the scariest possession film I've ever seen, but it did scare me on a second watch, and I very much enjoy when films scare me, actually. It means they made me feel something, which, as we've actually discussed in previous podcasts, just like 20th Century Woman made me feel something, Moonlight made me feel something. As long as you make me feel something besides disdain or annoyance, like maybe in Spring Breakers.
Boredom.
Or, yeah, other movies that we've watched, then I enjoy the movie. So that'll be a little preface for what I'm going to say later.
Fair enough. All right, Cole, so this being your first watch, as we get our opening scenes, what are some of the vibes that you're getting as we open this movie? And kind of give us your take on the intro.
Yeah, so I originally thought I had seen this movie. Turns out I was thinking of A Lady in Black, so completely different. I thought, first I was shocked because this was much different than what I remembered. Turns out I didn't watch it. I thought it was, I don't know. It was obviously like a very like somber, quiet, slow start. You know, and then there's like the couple kind of like jump out type scenes that pop up as she's like having her dream and stuff. I was a little confused, trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And again, I was wondering who the Blackcoat was throughout the film. I guess my initial vibes was curious, inquisitive, and I don't know, I was excited to see what was going to happen, I guess.
Well, that's fair. So we kind of get a good vibe for the film's pacing and tone pretty much right from the beginning. So, Kelly, I want to ask, the Blackcoat's Daughter is known for its slow-burning atmospheric horror. How do you feel like the film's pacing affected your experience? Did you find it effective in building the tension throughout the film?
I think that for me, and that's the note that I had just written down, was for me, I just feel like it's too slow for me until we find out who Joan actually is. And once that is revealed, the kind of burn that happens from then, and it's not like it's all then revealed immediately at that point, but the way that burn then like actually starts to ignite and like fire like an incense, that's when it's good for me. Before then, I'm just staring at the unlit candle, basically. It's too slow of a burn at the start.
I really like that analogy because I also agree with you completely in the way that throughout the majority of the film, like you say, I'm just kind of staring, waiting, wondering, kind of just... It's so weird being a movie reviewer watching a film as opposed to watching a film to enjoy it, because you really want to try to pick it apart or tear it down or even have some sort of opinion on it even before the movie is complete. And I feel like that's almost tainting my opinion in general. Maybe not just this movie, but movies in general. Guys, what do you guys think about that pacing question? Did anybody have a contrary opinion to Kelly on that, or maybe something you agreed with? Cole?
Yeah, I thought this movie was very slow, and to the point where it negatively affected it, to the point where I got 30 minutes into this movie and was very confused and was like, did I miss something? Is something happened? And I went back and I watched the first 30 minutes again. And guess what? I got absolutely nothing out of it.
What? Damn!
So
that's commitment for a guy who likes his 90-minute films. You put an extra 30 minutes on this thing?
I am well aware. And,
Must mean it was a good movie.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I think it's going to negatively affect his opinion.
No, I went back and watched an extra 30 minutes of this film because I was like, oh, I gotta put my movie review hat on. I gotta make sure I pay attention because clearly I missed something. And then it turns out I didn't. And also, I don't know if maybe I just didn't connect with the characters very well. When they show the scene of Joan for the first time and they put like the name Joan over it, I was like, why are they telling me the girl's name I've already met before? Turns out, spoiler, I guess I had met her, but you weren't supposed to know it, and it just becomes very convoluted. But yeah, I hated it. It was very slow in terms of the pacing. I thought the pacing could have been faster.
I think I'm in a unique position here. This is the first time I've liked a movie, and I think everyone else on the podcast doesn't like it.
All right.
So,
I want to ask Eric
though.
how in the first 13 minutes of this podcast, we've determined that while being on a movie podcast, we now watch movies differently. I'd like you to respond to that accusation.
Well, what do you mean? Like
I just mean just the idea that we've
yeah.
both commented that while we go into a movie, we're watching it with a different lens being on this podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe not specifically here, but just like as a movie reviewer. I feel like that's kind of worth touching base on when you analyze a film. You look at it from a completely different perspective, right?
Yeah, I think that we all bring our own personal biases into reviewing. That's very fair, I think. Like, I grew up Catholic. I probably would consider myself agnostic now. And so movies like this and The Exorcist actually really strike a fear into me and strike emotion into me. And that kind of personal bias definitely affects the way I watch a film, I think. Slow burn movies, too, I particularly enjoy. Like, I'm not saying that I have more patience than the next movie reviewer, but I feel like I have a lot of patience for movies like this. And I guess the fact that after the first time I watched it, I actually was confused by the ending. I was like, why would it end this way? We won't get into it yet. And I kind of understood it this time. And I've seen other horror movies that make the same point and do it in a less, not as good of a way. And then also the second fact that I saw this and then I realized that the writer and director of this movie was Osgood Perkins, who is Anthony Perkins' son, who was Norman Bates in Psycho. And I read all that, and that added an extra cool fact onto this movie for me. That
talk about a slow burn.
Yeah, that I didn't really realize before. And I know that I shouldn't like this movie more just because the guy that wrote and directed it was the son of a horror, all-time villain. Maybe the best villain in horror movies of all time. But it does make make me like the movie even more for me. So, yeah.
So I only comment on this briefly, but I'm also a born and raised Catholic boy. And my experience almost is completely opposite of yours as far as the way it makes me approach religious iconography or things in movies. Mm-hmm. It's almost to the point where I go, I roll immediately because of the amount of exposure that I had as a kid, as opposed to the sincerity of it. But I digress. We could talk about religion and all of that.
But I've went to therapy for this. I still have fear about demons and stuff. Yeah.
That's
even though I don't consider myself fully Catholic anymore, I still get scared by demons and stuff. And that is probably has to do with my Catholic upbringing and the way that they struck fear into my heart about these certain things.
Hey, that's cool. And if we can talk about that, that makes it even more enjoyable, or not when discussing movies like this.
That's a reason to like the movie for me. It's
damn straight, and that's huge. Yeah. That's huge. Yep. So, all right.
You have to think all the girls at the boarding school similarly had that kind of experience too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Although we don't see it straight up in our face, you have to assume so when the headmaster is a priest.
You don't.
Some people just enjoy getting possessed too. I guess
you also just don't see a lot in this movie.
As we come to find out,
they don't show you a lot. They're just they talk a lot and things happen, and they just don't show you things. And you just have to be like, this is a movie that is moving pictures that's supposed to fucking show me something. But yeah, whatever.
All right, I think we're starting to see the the framework of Cole's review here, but we'll get there. So, this movie employs a non-linear narrative structure. Yes, I know. It's great. How did this storytelling choice impact your understanding of the plot and the characters? For Cole, he had to rewatch 30 minutes of it. For the rest of you, did it enhance or detract from the overall experience of this film? I'm going to answer the question first. For me, I found it also distracting. I couldn't quite wrap my head around when was happening where. I was watching it with my wife, and she kind of pointed out some similarities to some of the things. I was like, oh, I guess maybe there's some flashback elements. But overall, I was kind of confused. Kiskas, what do you guys think?
Eric, you can go first because I went first
I
last.
think the casting between Joan and Kat, Emma Roberts, and Kiernan Shipka, not Kieran, sorry, Kiernan Shipka, which, yeah, we said Kieran earlier. Either way, the casting between those two and saying that they only have 9 years apart was a disservice to the film. I agree with that. They look very different from each other, and it's almost confusing to see Emma Roberts play the same character that she was 9 years ago. I completely agree with that. But the nonlinear time aspect, I actually enjoyed. I didn't pick it up the first time I watched it until about 45 minutes in. When they actually put the name Joan up on the screen, I was confused at first, and then throughout the film, I realized, this is the same person, and she's going back to finish the job. Or maybe going back to do more than that. I actually really enjoyed the suspense that it put in me. It was very suspenseful for me to have the differing timelines, and I think it added to the film.
Kelly, same question. What do you think about the non-linear structure?
I made a comment to Eric, which he immediately disagreed with because Eric is going to be biased in a way that he's already alluded to. Mm-hmm. I said, remember when we watched The Captive? And you guys remember watching The Captive and the timeline being everywhere and it being snowy outside. And that's what this movie started to remind me of. But both of those movies, it's not like I had trouble following along with it. It didn't get The Captive maybe got a little more convoluted than this one. But I can see how they were using it. And like I said, once we find out who Joan is, which at the time that we're shown Joan, we're talking about the actresses and the 9 years apart. My first thought was, what's the chance that two women or girls in this area have the same bad haircut? What is going on here? But no, instead, she's just had the same bad haircut for 9 years straight. And I was like, fine. Okay. So, I don't know. That added to something. But when you find out that you're kind of watching it not just non-linearly, but also a time gap. I liked kind of having those pieces to put together because, as I said, when we find out who Joan actually is, I just feel like that's when it all ramps up for me because you know what's going to end up happening. You have an idea then of what her goal is. So that is the point where for me, I appreciated all the jumping and all of the different perspectives of the same scene happening after that, especially the ones where we find out what happens to the sisters. I liked re-seeing that from different perspectives. So that part of the time jumping and the non-linear, I thought they did well for this movie.
Cole, do you want to add anything to your previous rant about the structure of the time jumping?
Yeah. This movie made me feel really dumb because I was just confused and to the point where I had to rewatch this for 30 minutes, and then I finished the movie, and I had to then go and then look up on IMDb the synopsis of what actually happened in this film, because I was so confused. I had to go to Wikipedia and IMDb to be what the fuck did I just watch? What is happening? Also, there's some, the whole point was, Joan is supposed to be the same person, but 9 years later, but it's the same, it's a different actress of the same age of the person that was already there. Mm-hmm. So it's maybe if they should have done something to make her look older or just something. But I was very confused because I'm why are they throwing in a third girl that's also crazy and, killing people and stuff? What is happening?
And why does she have the
Yeah,
same
I'm like-
haircut?
I will say on the second watch though, it made me understand it more when they had the character names like right in front of you.
Well,
like I was
yeah.
like, okay, Joan is different than Catherine because she's a completely different person now. That she isn't possessed or seeking possession.
She is seeking it.
Yeah, well, sorry, not seeking it, but like she's not possessed anymore. She's a different person. She's been through like 9 years of probably juvenile delinquency / prison, mental ward, and so she's a completely different person. So that's what I took from. Well, also she killed somebody and took her ID, so that is why she is Joan and not Kat. But like she is just a different person in general.
My question is, what is the point of having Joan involved at all? Like, they should have just focused on the original possession, and I thought that would have been a cool story, but instead they're like, what if we just throw in a thing that just confuses
This is
people?
why, Cole. Nope. This is
Where
why.
grief leaves you after 9 years, it still sticks
Oh,
with
right.
you.
Exactly.
That's what I think.
So, as Eric says, one of the central themes of this film is isolation, right? Is what grief can do to cause isolation, to make you feel alone. With characters trapped in a remote Catholic boarding school during this winter break, it absolutely increases the sense of isolation and entrapment. So, how did this setting contribute to the film's atmosphere and themes as the movie progresses? Kelly, you first.
Setting, atmosphere, and themes.
Exactly.
So, with the isolation, it definitely made me think of. I think we've talked about like how most of us on this podcast all went to school in the very snowy north of the UP, where our families are very far away from us. So the fact that they're in a boarding school and our scene is usually in the dark, it's always snowy there, even though they're in like New York State. I know kind of that feeling when you're waiting for your parents to show up when you're a freshman, because they have to do this great big trek to even get to you. And I didn't have a phone when I was a freshman too. So for that happening to Kat was very much, I understand that feeling. And the amount of anxiety that she would have then just like waiting for just a phone call. I like then that being juxtaposed with Rose, who made the conscious choice to expand her freedom while she's far away from family, to like explore out and use this isolation to be an adult in her kind of way. So I like that these are the two characters that we're kind of left with and starting with, even though they are in isolation and they're totally immediately big and little sistering. Until then, the amount of fear that opens up into Catherine not hearing from her parents makes her susceptible to this kind of like demonic influence. And I think that can't be understated. Even if we want to say the meaning of this movie is something else, I think that the meaning of this movie is demons exist and they will get inside of you if you get sad and low enough. So I think that she became susceptible to it. And that big and little sister moment when the little sister basically is like, it's too late for you. You had a chance to help me out. I just like that kind of setting. I like that everything that they kind of set up. I like that we start with a broad cast of characters in like the first 15 minutes, and then we have like what I'm going to continue to call kind of big and little sister going on. So all that for me set it up for a really good everything that was to follow, and the kind of like bad attitude that Catherine immediately gets, and you don't really know why until you do. All that makes sense because of the kind of setting of this Catholic school that we're in as well.
Hey, Eric or Cole, do you guys have any comments on the setting, whether it was from the snowy aspect, the filming up in the northeast there, or just anything about the boarding school aspect?
I guess when I was listening to Kelly here, I was like, going to school up in the Upper Peninsula, isolated and independent, I felt like that made me grow like as a person. Like I had to figure out how to be isolated and independent, and that was a good character like development thing for myself, where I could learn how to be away like from my parents, away from a lot of civilization in general. But in this movie, the main character, Kat, she had both of her parents die while she was in this isolated and independent setting, And I thought about, like, if that happened to me, what would have happened to me up in the Upper Peninsula? Like, if that happened and I was just kind of alone up there and no one was there to take me home. And I completely understood kind of letting demons in, like, in the metaphorical sense. This movie was
Literal.
very this movie was very literal in its sense of letting demons in, but I understand, like, the metaphor it was creating, that when you are independent and isolated and you have a horrible thing happen to you, it's extremely easy for demons to come into your life in a metaphorical sense. I kind of understood this movie really well in a way. Yeah.
I think actually this movie and comments by the director have actually lended to this, that it's much more, the themes are much deeper than what's kind of guised by the horror. He talks about it being almost a Trojan horse, so a film about loneliness and isolation that he guised in the form of a horror movie, which I feel truly, as I finish the film and kind of like break it down a little bit more, that the messages, I guess, are more important, or the theming was deeper and better, a better part of this movie than the actual movie itself. And maybe that's just my opinion on it. But Cole, I want to ask you about the actual aspects of the horror in this film. So it does explore different varieties, right, from the supernatural elements to some psychological dread. But what kind of aspects of the horror did you find most compelling in this film, and why?
I have a hard time. I guess, like, I think it did a good job with, like, the isolation and kind of, like, a tension and obviously, like, unsettling, like, something's obviously not right. You can't be just calling people the C word and expect nothing to happen. But I really didn't get a sense of horror in this film. Like, it just didn't, I don't know. I maybe it's just because I just watched Talk to Me, Talk to Me, and I thought, like, that horror movie is amazing. But this one, just the horror, I just didn't really get a lot of horror aspects. I thought it did, like, the thriller kind of thing. But I feel like he like built up all this tension and kind of suspense, and then when it was like gonna climax, it just kind of did like a bunch of weird like quick cuts and stuff, and never really kind of came out with that like punch to the face horror moment that's supposed to like grab you and make you feel terrified. It's kind of like, oh, she's possessed and she already killed these people, she's gonna go kill more people now. And you're like, okay. There was a lot of interesting jump cuts that maybe hindered it, and I felt like the non-linear story also hindered the fact, kind of removed some of that horror elements, because as you build up the tension, it jumps to a different person and you're just now confused, or at least I was, because I'm a big dummy. So
all right, so I won't take long with this whole thing, but
You're not a big dummy, Cole. I understand where you're coming from.
You're not a
I'll
big
just
dummy,
say that.
Cole.
Like,
you're not.
Yeah.
You're not. All right. At the beginning of this, in my intro, I talked about hating horror. And if anyone's listened to the majority of our podcast, we've talked about how I don't like horror movies. Getting scared is not my thing, et cetera, et cetera. Before I watched this film, I messaged our podcast group a screen cap of what was a description of this film. And it was something along the lines of a brooding horror masterpiece. And it generated kind of a conversation about, me not looking forward to it, etc. And then I informed Eric that I had finished it, and he asked if I was scared. And I had to ask him if he was serious, mostly because when I finished the film, I really didn't find, just like Cole, any horror aspect to it at all. And again, Eric, I'm trying not to diminish the way you find this film entertaining. I really don't. And maybe it was because I was watching it at like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the afternoon with some light coming in with my wife and the dogs running around, and I wasn't like completely immersed. Maybe it was my upbringing as a Catholic schoolboy who now does not, follow that any longer, so it doesn't freak me out as much. I don't know. There was something about it that I just didn't have that element of horror. So that reason I asked Cole that question, and Kelly, I want to ask you the same thing, is what aspects of the horror did you find, and is it truly a subjective version or viewing of that horror element?
I think, like Cole had said, it's more of a thriller, but it's it's a slow thriller. This is a movie that's very much like a very long episode to me of American Horror Story, where the horror isn't like smacking you in the face, but there's elements of it there. You can't have a movie with satanic possession and not put it in the horror category, regardless of how you're gonna show it to us. And I feel like with the Rose character, they had some like throwbacks to like, I don't know, like Scream era type horror movies where it's the woman who's walking around nervous and turning every corner and opening every door, where the noise for us as the audience is the really loud sound of doors creaking open is supposed to make us like jump a little bit. So those elements are there, but I definitely didn't find this movie like over the top, like I'm gonna yelp, I'm gonna do anything like that. Even when they tried to throw in the elements of she's in front of the furnace and she's thrashing back and forth, or she's in her bed and she does the legs over the head, all that just felt pretty tame in the way that, like, I hate to keep saying American Horror Story, but I'm going to keep saying it. And it's not just because Emma Roberts is in it, though it didn't help.
Did not. No,
So-
it did not.
That kind of stuff. It's just like a tame kind of horror to me. It's like a TV movie kind of horror is, I think, where I would put this one.
Eric, you want to toss in on this one, on the horror elements of this film?
This is what I was saying to you, Kevin. Like, fear is very subjective. Like, I think I figured out that you are more scared of serial killer type horror movies and not supernatural horror movies. And I'm more scared of supernatural horror movies. And that's completely fine.
Totally fine.
But the one thing that Kelly touched on that I really fucking appreciate in this film is the sound editing. Like, the sound editing, pitching up the door sounds, the muffled voices, the fluorescent lights in the Catholic school. I don't know, I appreciate that on a whole other level. Maybe because I do audio editing, but, like, I saw, like, where they went into the film and they like, pitched up all of these noises, and I'm just like, that's fucking awesome. Like, I fucking love some good sound editing in a film. I love that this is a low-budget film, and that they actually had somebody probably go in and do the sound editing and, like, pitch up all these noises just to make it a little more nervous, anticipatory, and anxious for the audience. And that worked for me, for sure.
All right, Cole, toss in on the sound editing. What do you got?
I will say one thing that I did enjoy that I don't think I've seen in another film that I thought was a very, like, smart and a unique take was towards the end, towards the climax, where the police officer's confronting her after she's, killed these people and is still possessed, and he's talking to her, but it's coming through kind of all muffled and robotic, like the phone call. And I interpreted that as almost her, our main character, I can't remember her name, hearing the police officer, but through
Kat.
Kat, like the Kat's hearing him, but she's possessed, so she's hearing it through, like, while being possessed, and it's all kind of muffled and distorted and stuff like that. I thought that was a pretty cool touch. I enjoyed that. I did think that a lot of the sounds were done very well. So I don't want to be a complete hater of the movie, but I wanted to point out that because I really did enjoy that part, because I thought that was a unique take on it. Made me think a little bit more.
So, for me, maybe it was my speaker, maybe it was my state of mind, but during the phone calls where Satan was calling various people in times and whispering things in the phone, I struggled to kind of understand maybe what was happening or what he was instructing her to do. Apparently there was a pretty...
Kill all the cunts.
Exactly what Eric said. I didn't catch that when I first watched it, so I was watching
put
YouTube
subtitles on
reviews and
too,
stuff.
actually.
I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that's what they said.
I had to put subtitles
Totally,
on too.
explains
But that's-
a
It doesn't
lot.
matter
The
that
reason
you had to
you
put
couldn't-
subtitles on or no, though.
But
Like,
fucking,
I feel like
who wants to watch subtitles while watching a film? I don't.
the droning
You do.
noise, I think, was
I
scary
don't.
enough. Yeah. I don't
The
know.
reason that you couldn't hear Satan's voice when he spoke to you is because you were baptized in a Catholic church
Was
as
it
a baby.
Satan? Was it Satan, though?
Shit.
I feel like it was just a demon.
Kelly, I love it. No, that was.
There's a
I feel
difference.
like that was absolutely fucking Satan himself. Come on.
I think it was.
All right. That the semantics on the theology of
There's no way that was
a guy named Brian Ufberg, and the music was by a guy named Elvis Perkins, who is the brother of Osgood Perkins, also the son of Anthony Perkins.
Right, so it was all in the family.
Yeah. And he actually wrote that scene where Kat plays at the talent show. He wrote that song in the garden that she plays on the piano. And all of this put together, there's just so much more to this movie, I feel, than I originally realized, and it makes me love this movie.
Hey, I think that's actually pretty cool, regardless. So let's talk about the music a little bit. So a lot of this soundtrack is what we've referred to, right? Ambient noise, things that are pitched up, screeching strings that are accompanying a lot of horror films, things that create suspense. But we also get cool segments like Eric alluded to on the talent show. I also thought there was an introductory song in the first couple minutes that reminded me of a Western for some odd reason or another. So, does anyone else have any opinions on kind of the soundtrack or some of the choices that they used with the music in this particular film? No? All right. Well, Eric pretty much touched on it. Anything else you want to elaborate there, sir?
Well, at the end, Elvis Perkins does original song called Blackcoat's Daughter, which is the name of the film.
Only reason,
right?
That is called this, right?
Well, I've listened to Elvis Perkins before I even saw this film, and he's a really fucking talented folk musician. And the fact that he's in this film makes me like it more because I don't know, he has created some amazing songs. I think back of the song Exploder that Trent Reznor did with 9 Inch Nails and Hurt, and he talks about how Eraserhead, the movie, puts all of these random furnace noises throughout the film and these random sound effects throughout the film, and the sound editing plays so much into the film. And I think this movie did exactly that. The sound editing was top notch, and I think Brian Ufberg and Elvis Perkins both had something to do with that. And I respect the film on that level because there's very few films that really, really pay attention to sound editing and peak it up a notch in that way. So, yeah.
So, another individual performance, well, not individual performance, but that was an individual performance by our music person. Let's talk about the actual performances in this film itself. So, in The Blackcoat's Daughter, we see some, I would say, particularly strong performances from Kiernan Shipka and Emma Roberts. What did you guys think of the cast performances in general, and how did they contribute to the film's effectiveness? Hey, Cole, why don't you tell me a little bit about the cast?
I thought they did a fine job. I don't think there was really anything I didn't like. Although I will say the scene of the Kat and Rose with the two sisters at the kitchen table, I thought that scene was kind of funny, where they're just doing the prayer and then she calls them the C word and then just immediately starts vomiting. I thought that scene was kind of I don't know, could have been done better. But overall, I thought, their performances are good, and most of the people that are most of the, especially the main actors in this film, have gone on to do phenomenal stuff and are very talented. So I don't have any major complaints on any of them.
Kelly, what do you think about the performances in this film?
I keep talking about when the burn happened for me. Pre-burn, pre-possession, Kiernan Shipka's performance for me, I did not think it was good. And I was kind of struggling with her pulling off of her character. But once she becomes possessed, she sold it to me. She was made to play a possessed character. And the makeup job, too. That's something I don't often talk about on our reviews, is I love makeup. I love the way that horror makeup can make a person look, and especially not just when it's gets to sci-fi and crazy and cuts and gore, but when it's subtle, like the way that they made her actor look with the red sunken kind of eyes and expression. They paled her out. They made her hair poofy. All of these kind of things that added and became subtly more and more as she gets deeper and deeper, I think needs to be called out. And that wouldn't have worked if she didn't pull off the performance as well as she did. In addition to that, Emma Roberts did an Emma Roberts job. I think that she pulled it off fine. And she's a good actress to me, but she doesn't like blow it out of the water in my perspective. And I think that this movie was kind of the same in that regard. Rose, the actress who plays Rose, I think did a fine job. I've not really seen her in anything else, but I think the standout for me is the mom and dad, James Reamer, and I don't know who plays the mother.
So Lauren Holly, she played Mary Samsonite. I was way off. Mary Samsonite.
I didn't realize that.
Dumb and Dumber.
That's amazing.
Mary Samsonite.
Are you
Dumb
serious?
No, Mary Swanson. Sorry.
Wait, are you serious? She's the same actress?
Yeah, no, she was Mary Swanson in Dumb and Dumber.
Wow.
Okay. Jeez, that was...
I like this movie
That
now.
was a lot.
This movie's
to
good.
take in.
This is a good movie.
I had to play out the,
That was brilliant.
Samsonite.
You were
Mary-
sitting on that for a while, weren't you? That was great.
Wow. Okay, so anyways, the standout performance for me was mom and dad. I think that Mary and James,
Samsonite. I was way off.
I think that they are what stood out for me. The scene with James and Emma Roberts. So this actually does give chops to Emma when they are in the hotel room together where she's in the towel and he comes in and they ask questions back and forth. And she's so withdrawn and she has a mission. And I think all that's portrayed, and the way that if this is a story about different ways to handle grief, either the loss of your parents without any closure or the loss of your daughter without any closure, and the situational irony of talking to the woman who killed your daughter right in front of you, because of all of this kind of tension built up between it, it lets them, as actors, I think, really give a really good performance. These three that I'm talking about stood out the most because of what was painted for them, but also the long, like, soliloquy that the mother gives with the backlighting and her, like, the 3/4 kind of shadowed face that she has when she's speaking to Emma Roberts in the back of the car. Another standout kind of delivery from her. So my standouts are mom and dad.
Excellent.
James Reamer also was Dexter's dad in the TV series Dexter, and his voice throughout the whole thing just reminded me of Dexter, and just Dexter, or him talking down to his son Dexter, it reminded me exactly of that show. His voice, exactly.
How about that?
Yeah.
2 points. I agree with Kelly completely on the makeup. I thought that they did an excellent job of utilizing that to their best ability. And I do like the reference to some of the ambiguity and some of the questions that we are left with while we're watching this film. So, Cole, this film does leave us with several questions, but what are your interpretations of the film's ambiguous elements? What did you think they contributed to the film's effectiveness? I know you said you were confused and felt stupid, so that's why I wanted to ask you this question. Did you find it annoying, or was it something that you were kind of into as you were going through the film?
Well, I definitely was confused, so I'll reiterate that. But as for like the ambiguity, I guess I didn't realize that I was going into like a possession type film. I honestly thought there was going to be some malevolent spirit or entity, but I didn't expect it to be a full possession. And really, I didn't get that until she just started killing people, and then right before she gets shot, she just says, "Hail Satan," just to make sure everyone knows what's happening. So maybe the writer and director also thought they were a little too ambiguous of, is this person crazy or is she possessed? Well, let's make sure that everyone knows that she's possessed. So when she gets shot, we're going to have her just be like, "Hell Satan, let's go."
Right.
I don't know.
Did you just do rock on hands? Did you just give us devil horns while you said that?
Hail Satan!
All right.
Yeah.
The beast.
Like, I enjoy films that don't handhold to a certain extent, but I feel like this film, for being a horror aspect, probably could have done more where it just showed us what was happening, or just, I don't know, pushed it more, pushed the envelope, because, again, a lot of stuff happened kind of not in the focus of the camera or in the view. And again, maybe I'm just a big dummy, but I don't know. I wish I saw more, or wish there was more like hardcore possession happening than, I guess, kind of the softcore possession, so to speak.
So for me, there was elements of this film that really made it super apparent that we were dealing with the possession, and that was a lot of the religious side of things. Eric, you kind of had touched on it, how some of that religious symbolism was important because of your past, but I also think that this film in general uses religious symbolism and occult symbolism in general to its strength. So how do you think these elements added depth to that story, having a religious backside to it, and did it resonate you on a thematic level, not so much as a personal level?
So I think I've talked about this before on our podcast. If you haven't listened to it, I watched The Exorcist from a very young age, and I've been watching horror movies for a very long time. On a thematic level, I feel like possession is something that it can be very, very effectful in horror. It's the idea of a outer entity, like just taking hold of your body and you not having any control over it. And that like idea to me is actually a very scary idea. Like just something taking hold of your body and you having no control over it. In our last episode, our interview with Rhea Mazzola, she's a paranormal anthropologist and talks a lot about possession and just kind of the idea of it like in real life, like how people actually get to that point. Throughout the world, you actually see like cases of this, and you don't know why it happens or how it happens. People knowing Latin without ever learning it before or ever studying it. And there are cases of this throughout the world that you just can't explain. And it kind of goes into the unexplained parts of like how we live on this earth, I guess. And I think that there's a lot of unexplained things that I can't explain, which is why I'm still agnostic. Like, well, unexplained things I can't explain. That's, weird. Anyway, but I kind of, like, have a weird, like, side of me that still believes in some kind of thing that can take possession of my body and I will have no control over it. And that is why these kind of films, they possess me more than I would like to.
All right. Moving on. Kelly, I want to ask about direction and cinematography. So this film has actually been praised for its direction by Oz Perkins and the general cinematography throughout. So can you discuss some of the standout visual or directorial choices that stood out to you?
Yeah, I definitely think that the rule of thirds, we all know what that means. I'm sure that our listeners do too. They utilize that a lot, or he does, and the cinematographer does. Lots of minimalist shots in that kind of regard, and I think that having the setting of this kind of like old dilapidated building where they all live gives credence to that, and it adds to the aspect of isolation when you only have maybe your character's head occupy a ninth of the screen while the rest of it is all the background. So they utilize that a lot. So the first time I saw it, I was like, this is the stupidest shot I've ever seen. And it was when Emma Roberts holds her hand out before she makes a phone call, and you see the 2 quarters in her hand. And I was like, this is giving me like film student like 101. This is the kind of shot that you would frame, is these 2 quarters in your hand before you put them in the phone. But that's immediately called back by Kat when she uses her hand and she opens up her hand in the same way to call for her parents. And that's your first sign that these are the same people outside of the bad haircut. But like that kind of stuff is utilized then to kind of combine those timelines. So I think that was really interesting. I think also, so this plays into the fact that I'm calling this like TV horror genre. But the way that they kind of show us the demon, who kind of reminds me of Donnie Darko's bunny, kind of in the corner of our eye, and it looks like I was calling it like a moth or a bunny. That's all we see. And I'm a big fan of show us less of the monster rather than more. It's always going to be scarier that way. So I like that they only ever gave us like maybe 2 or 3 visions of it. So they were really, really the opposite of heavy-handed with these kind of visions. And I think that plays well into it. So it's like very obviously artful and intentful. I think both to its positive and to its negative in some places. Like it didn't always hit for me. It felt like they were trying to be something maybe inauthentic, if that makes sense. Because it's almost too intentional. It's too by the books in some regards. But those are my thoughts.
Those are great thoughts. Do you guys have anything else you want to throw in on the cinematography, or shall we move on to the next one?
Cole,
please.
I was just going to say, overall, good cinematography. I'm going to reiterate most of what Kelly said. But the one scene that I thought they did a disservice to was when she kills one of the sisters, when she's laying, the one that's mortally wounded, she comes back and starts stabbing her in the back. They do so many hard cuts. Every time they like stab, it's like hard cut to the side. She pulls the knife up, hard cut to her face, and then she keeps doing it. It's like 5 times, and I'm like, oh, just you don't have to do, 5 cuts in 5 seconds, so to speak. So I thought that was a little overdone.
It's funny. My wife Maddie made the exact same comment. I'm like, "Hey Maddie, anything you want to throw in this podcast?" She's like, "Yeah, the stabbing scene. I hated it. As far as like the cut between down and back up and like back down. She's like, just show me him stabbing him. Come on,
just stick with the
she
side."
Did show her stabbing the older boarding school student, right?
That's what we're talking about. Oh, you mean talking about Rose?
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
Rose was fast. That was fast.
Yeah,
and that was good, and that's what I'm saying. Like, just do the same like type of shot for the nun. Like, they had the side angle where it's her coming down, but they just kept cutting every time she would pull it up. They would cut to just showing her face
just
up
that
top.
specific
and then,
scene.
Well,
yes.
and
like,
so
why?
This is what I'll say about the cinematography. I think sometimes I guess you guys didn't experience this, but sometimes things are scarier when they don't show it. And the sound editing of the knife going in and out, it was very graphic, and I just
You could hear
like
this.
you could hear the knife just going in and out of the skin.
They put it
and
in the
that
trailer.
was so fucking graphic.
Eric, they put it in the trailer. I went back and rewatched. I'm like, wow, they literally put the knife stabbing graphic, like the audio, in the trailer itself.
Yeah, the audio
That's
is
crazy.
very graphic and loud, and I actually
hear
felt
that it's
was
like a
scarier to not see
serrated
it
knife.
and just hear it.
Yeah, I think the only way that cut would have made sense is if the woman was facing her, so you would feel like you're staring into the killer's eyes as she's getting stabbed. But the lady was laying with her back on the ground. So I don't know, it bothered me. Sound editing aside,
the
very good.
cinematographer was Julie Kirkwood.
We'll get a new job,
and-
Julie.
Oh,
Damn! Come on,
I'm just kidding.
all right,
Julie,
we're
I
moving
think
on.
you did a great job. And so, like, I'll defend the cinematography a bit. I think that a lot of horror films, they do well with negative space. That's like a big thing. Negative and minimal space in horror films makes it scarier for a lot of people when they don't know exactly what's going on, or there is a lot of negative space. They see somebody's face, and then the background, there's like nobody in the background, and then all of a sudden the killer pops out of the background. And this film did more with minimal space than negative space, but I still think it was accomplished in what they were trying to do. I think Julie Kirkwood did a great job with the minimal space that she was using, and I think it was very intentful, like Kelly said, and I actually enjoyed the intent that she was using.
Fantastic. All right. My last big question, I suppose, before we get to our reviews, is going to compare this A24 horror film, especially a slow burn horror film, to some of the others that are in our collection, especially The Witch and Hereditary. So what sets Blackcoat's Daughter apart from those two films, maybe specifically, without giving away any of those details, especially for me, on Hereditary, but what common themes do they share, if any? Kelly, I want you to start.
Immediately, I know you asked about common themes, but the immediate standout between this and Hereditary is Hereditary has a great script. This movie, for me, the script writing was not my favorite. There were a lot of scenes where I thought it was extremely dry. I would say the similarity between this movie and The Witch, which, like I had said earlier, I feel like this movie was almost trying to be like the response to The Witch, and maybe that was A24's intention by distributing this. It's like the never-ending story. Satan is going to possess women. He's going to possess young women. He's going to find the cracks in their facade to sneak through, all the way back to Eve.
Kind of a disagreement there, right?
Well, Hereditary is different, and I can't really say why.
Yeah, nothing. Not a drop.
In that kind of way. But the similarity I'm saying between like The Witch and this is like this like feminine usability by evil, I guess, is this like story that goes all the way back to the beginning of time. There's a more eloquent way to say this, but
I mean, right,
like,
Eve, if you think about it, right? Garden of Eden.
You go back to Eve, yep. And all of these kind of movies, you think about The Exorcism, as Erica has talked about earlier. Think about Rosemary's Baby. Think about, I think Possession is a woman as well. And even video games like Faith, I think about a lot too. That goes back. So I think that that's like a long-standing like story throughout like humankind. So this is another example of that. So of course there's that, and the fact that Witch is also the Witch is also a slow burn, like how this movie was. But The Witch puts us in a place and time that this movie I don't think does in the same way. The Witch puts us in a whole... I just feel like that movie set us up so much more. Like, it ripened our minds for what was to come with its slow burn. This movie, I don't know that it accomplished that, but I could see how it might have been trying to. So I think that that's the similarity, but it didn't like knock it out of the park like these other two movies that you suggested did. Those are two movies that knock it out of the park. This one bunted for sure.
All right, Eric and Cole, give me your comparisons and differences, if you will, between this and those other two major horror films from A24. Eric?
This was not as good as The Witch or Hereditary, especially in a slow burn aspect. I don't feel the cinematography and the actual like plot of the film and the acting was as good as The Witch and Hereditary and Midsommar for that fact. I think Kelly raised a great point about how in film history, when we have possession films, we often they often possess women instead of men. And it's a very, like, odd thing. I think, like, that they try to possess women instead of men because societal, like, from a societal aspect, women seem more innocent, quote-unquote, than men. And seeing a, like, younger woman be possessed is a very disturbing thing as opposed to a younger man. Because in society, we think that men, even younger men, they're prone to be more violent. And that's why it might be more disturbing, I guess, that women are possessed, which is a weird societal thing that film has brought across through all these generations. But at the same time, I think this film, I think they want to touch more on grief and how grief possesses a person and lets really evil, like demonic things into somebody when before that would have never been possible. And I like that aspect of it. It's definitely a story that's been told before, but I think the cinematography, the sound editing, and the acting got it across for me, and that's why I enjoyed it.
Well, I'm sure we'll get an opportunity to reiterate all of those things as we get to our final, but I would agree with you in that sense that there was something about it that really did come across as spooky in a way, one way or another, and it really is just totally up to interpretation on all of those things. So, Cole, anything you want to lay in there on the A24 comparisons before we move into our final grades?
No, I mean, this movie was basically like a guy watched The Witch in The Shining and decided to make a worse movie.
All right, and with that, I'm putting you on the spot, Cole. You're up first. Give me your full review.
But yeah, I think overall, I did not like this film, even though I am a big fan of horror and, I've watched a lot of possession movies. My partner loves all like the ghosts and spirits and Exorcist type movies, so I've watched a ton of them. I did not think this one lived up to that genre and gave me kind of the thrill or the adrenaline rush of a horror movie as I was hoping for, and it also didn't tell a compelling story to me. I did not like the non-linear. It made me feel dumb. It also made me watch an extra 30 minutes of a film that I did not personally enjoy. So that's another negative. I went into this thinking, cool 90 minutes, always a plus for me. Turned into 2 hours, and now I'm, sad and mad because I learned nothing from my extra 30 minutes. The choice to have, the nonlinear story with multiple actresses playing the same character 9 years apart, but not be different ages in just based off looking at them, I thought was a very bold choice and hurt it. So overall, if you I guess are into this kind of movie, I would say go watch The Witch or Hereditary. I think those are very, very well done A24 horror films. Talk to Me is also amazing horror film about possession that is way better. So I'm just going to give this a D24, I guess. I think there's so many better versions out there, but there's a couple redeeming things, and I just don't want to hurt Eric's feelings too much, or the Catholics, so.
Right. And I'm going to jump right behind you so that we don't have two, wildly differentiating opinions, although I feel like Kelly might be joining our boat here. But for me, when I finished it, I was very disappointed. I didn't really find a whole lot of horror aspect throughout the film. I didn't really find a whole lot of the story compelling, or really most of anything, to be honest with you. I tried really hard to get myself in the mood or put myself in a perspective where I was going to try to enjoy it, and it might have been my brain trying to protect me from a movie that I thought wasn't something that I was going to enjoy, with my predilection to hating of horror, but I really was just kind of left wanting a whole lot more than I was given. Again, it could be a ton of different personal reasons why. I mean, the film wasn't terrible, right? It wasn't just like The Drizzling Shits or something where I go, don't watch it. If you're a horror buff, if you like satanic possession movies, if you are a fan of A24 or this podcast, please watch this movie. It's definitely worth your time in the sense that you want the completionist aspect of it. Come on, let's be honest with ourselves. But B, it's different, all right? It's got something to it for those people that really enjoy horror films. For me, it wasn't my thing. So I'm going to be with Cole on this one. And this, again, is nothing against the actresses, the actors, the writing, the directing. Just, it was, again, personal taste. It gets a D24 for me as well. So, sorry. Kelly, you're up next.
I don't know if I let you all know how I was going to kind of lead into how I would review this. I think that my thing that I kept bringing up was when, for me, in what I will consider as a slow burn, as everyone considers it, when the flame was lit was at 1/3 of the way through the movie. First third, I was like, no potential. This is not going to do it for me. But once that flame is lit, I think that this movie took off for me. And I'll tell you 2 reasons why, and it's not just one twist in this movie, but 2. When we find out that Rose is gonna die, and you don't know exactly why yet, but you know that her parents are sitting there with Joan at the time, and here's the picture of her, and you know that picture so well because the cinematography showed us that photo of Rose being taken twice beforehand. That picture, means a lot, and there's the dad with it in his wallet. You know that she's going to die. So the amount of tension that builds for me, I think, was amazing. And the fact that when you find out how she does die, it's like really not a big thing. It's not like overdone in the way that they shoot it or anything. It's like it subverted my expectations, and I love that happening. So that was one spot that was a twist. The second spot towards the end is when we find out that Joan, who broke out of the psych ward, is not possessed, because we see the exorcism happen, and it went incredibly well. And as she was called Catherine at the time, and that's her real name, just wanted the demon back inside of her. She didn't want to be left alone. I think that that was such an interesting take. You've never, well, I can't speak for everyone, but I've never seen that happen in a movie before. I thought that that was like a really fresh perspective as well. So both of these, plus of course Satan or demons would reside in an all-girls boarding school, because that's just ripe for the picking. He's just waiting for one of these girls to feel lonely enough to find a vessel to send some kind of satanic force into. So all of these things being added together, huge props in my mind. It's only taken down because of, as I previously mentioned, I just feel like it's muted from what it could be. If we take this whole same story, if we take this non-linear way that it's delivered, I just want to like take the dial and ramp it up like 33% and we'd have an A here. I just feel like it was dialed back too much for me. Part of that too is I think that the script was kind of weak. If you're going to be possessed by Satan, you can do more than just saying the C word, saying "Hail Satan." Like, let's just like give me more. That's all I want. But there's all the lines like the nuns finding out that oh shit, her parents are dead. Rose, can you go outside and I want you to shovel the snow to the ground. Like these kind of spots, it like really stood out as like really memorable to me, even though I watched it once before and forgot it. On the second watch, I will not forget this. Anyways, long-winded. Goods and bads, ramp it up more. I like the story. I really, really do. So all this said, I'm going to give it, it's so in between two letters. It's going to go B minus 24.
I have a feeling that this episode may go down as the most divided the four of us have ever been on a film as far as like aggregate score.
Yeah.
Eric?
If you take out Spring Breakers, yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. All right, Eric, bring us home. Yeah. Give us the top down.
So I'm the lone one that really loves this film. I love the nonlinear aspect of this film. I think it adds suspense. I like the cinematography, the sound editing. I hate to say it again, but as an audio editor, I really respect this film on a whole other level because of just I can notice everything they're doing with the sound editing. The acting. I know that Emma Roberts, she's like kind of good in horror, but not good in a lot of other things. And I could kind of notice that in this. She didn't really like bring home an amazing performance. But Kiernan Shipka, I actually think was surprisingly good at like slowly being possessed. I thought that was actually a pretty cool part of the film. The directing by Osgood Perkins, I like that, and the cinematography, setting the tone of this film, the slow burn of this film, and the color palette of this film. I think actually a big part of directing is setting a color palette to a film, which is an odd thing to think about, but like I think that's a lot of what like a director has to do. It's like set the tone, set the color palette, direct the actors, be a watcher of everybody on the set. That's what Brian De Palma told us in his documentary of De Palma, and I think that Osgood Perkins did a great job of this. The tone of the film I really enjoyed. And I like how this film really touches on how grief lets demons in. I love our ending. I like how our main character gets possessed and she wants it back in her. That's not a common thing in horror. We don't see that in horror very often. The Exorcist, once it gets out of her, once it gets out of Reagan, she wants it out. She's horrified. She blacks out and like doesn't even remember it. And the fact that this film talks about like how somebody experienced grief, and if you pay attention at the start of the film, our main character Kat, she sees her parents get in a car wreck. She sees the car wreck in the parking lot. She like lets that grief of seeing that slowly possess her throughout the film. And I think that is such a beautiful like metaphor for how grief can like let somebody just get completely possessed by evil. I think that this film did so good on so many levels. It wasn't as good as Hereditary or Midsommar, and I know that I'm different than everybody else here on my grading here, but I'm going to give it an A-, and I'm going to stick by it, and I don't care that nobody else liked it. I think that it's okay to like a film and have everybody else not like it. You don't have to get defensive over it.
Damn straight.
You can just enjoy a film, and it's completely fine. I don't care if the critics like it or not. I just enjoy it. For me.
Out of the 40 whatever movies that we've watched, I just love that we can still have these kind of conversations where it's just about sometimes preference. It's not always about how the film structurally is or the semantics about it. So for those viewers out there, you've stuck with us. Thanks so much. I appreciate you for being here, and I want you to give us your opinion on this film. Write us, comment, like, and subscribe. Do all of those things that you do. We appreciate you for being here, and thank you so much. And on to the next one. Guys, let's have a good night. Sayonara.
Bye.
Thanks for listening.
I